Okay, just says the meeting is being live streamed. You consent to being live streamed. You got it?
I got it.
Got it?
I'm psyched about being live streamed on YouTube. I love it. Are Ginny and George with us?
I don't know, but we're live now, guys.
I hear everything, all the bad things you're saying about.
We would never, George Brown, we would never say bad things about either Ginny or George Brown. Never, never, never.
All right, so we are live here for our 2023 Kirby Jam Seek Week lineup of live stream events. Sorry for the delay if you were waiting. We had some technical difficulties, but we're here. So I'm here.
That sounded so official. Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties.
That's right.
I said as we started out here, I was like, we should have made this like a pajama party because it's Friday night. This is our 6th live stream of the week. So
this is
I'm kind of ready to just.
This is your 6th live stream of the week.
Oh, I know. This is your 11th.
Something. I've gone live every night. So yes, the
after party has been with Dr. Glenn, for which I'm grateful because he's an hour earlier, so he can handle that. Whereas for me, we wrap up and I'm like, okay, it's time for bed.
Now the world has gotten a lot of Seek this week. In fact, the world has gotten more Seek in 1 week than we've ever given them. Mm-hmm. So we love you guys for tuning in. We've had a very consistent crew kind of showing up. Hopefully they can find us tonight. We're trying something new tonight. We're on YouTube tonight, right?
Yeah, we're on YouTube via Zoom. And Zoom was like, we wanted to put it on Zoom because we thought we might have some other people who'd want to join us. And so I was like, all right, I can figure out how to live stream from Zoom, right? So of course I realized it's like it only lets you do it to one platform at a time. And then I tried to do it to my Facebook, to Seek's Facebook, and it was like, no. We need you to sign in as Jean, and then you can do it from there. And so we're on our YouTube channel, but I posted the link on Facebook. So hopefully some people have found us from there. And then of course we're recording and we'll have this up on all our platforms after the fact as well. So people can watch the playback.
So if you're one of our hardcore Seek Safely stands, who followed us from Facebook on over to YouTube, God bless you. We love you.
Yeah.
And something I've
grateful.
Man, I tell you, something I have been so grateful for and excited about is the level of engagement that we've had this week. We've had our stands have followed along. I just found out today that I didn't even realize that one of our stands, Cindy, in addition to being along with us on our live streams, also her birthday was this week. Happy birthday, Cindy.
Oh, happy birthday, Cindy.
But she also did one of those Facebook fundraisers for us on behalf of Seek. So this was the week to do it. So thank you so much for that. But again, we are always overwhelmed when people show up for us and engage with our content, and we thank you so much for it. I mean, that goes for our live streams and the Dr. Doyle after party. Mm-hmm. You guys rule. We love you guys.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's really heartening to get this kind of feedback from people and to know that, our messages are resonating and they feel important to you. And we love to, to take your constructive criticism as well and suggestions. We love all of it. So we really appreciate just everybody who's been showing up. And we've got Ginny Brown with us and George Brown. Potentially.
They look like they're in a cloud down there. They look like they're in a mist.
It's a bit foggy in New York.
It's a bit foggy in West Town. Ginny and George, are you there?
Yes, we're here, and I'm very sorry that I can't get visual because today I spent time with the geeks, and then we had our internet guy here doing all kinds of things and speaking a foreign language and not explaining anything to me. And so obviously everything in my system now is kind of messed up. But I'm glad that we could at least connect with you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So tonight we wanted to be all about sharing some Kirby stories. So of course, we spent a lot of time on the one hand talking about how Seek has always been more than the story of how Kirby Brown died in Sedona. That's an important part of our message because we're saying we're not just focused on one single thing that happened 14 years ago. We're focused on the fact that because of that incident, it revealed to us this whole world of abuse and manipulation in the self-help industry. And so we've always been about that bigger picture. But at the same time, Kirby has always been the perfect example of like the ultimate seeker. And it's been so, I get chills sometimes when I think about it because over the years, we've met lots of other people who have, who are also self-help seekers and people who have been in, abusive cultish type groups, people who have, tried every self-improvement program out there, people who have always lived like Kirby did, kind of trying to live like an alternative sort of lifestyle. And when I talk about Kirby with these people, they all feel like, oh yeah, I probably would have been best friends with Kirby. It's such a common thing that I hear. And I'm like, yeah, you probably would have been. You're definitely Kirby's type of person. So even though we always emphasize that our mission is much bigger than Kirby's story still is a point of connection with other seekers. And we also want her story to be inspiring to people because, again, we also talk a lot about how our mission isn't about telling people not to seek because, the person that we loved, that we missed dearly, she was a seeker. And that was part of what made her so amazing and so beautiful. So that's why we still like to talk about Kirby a lot, because we hope that other seekers will be touched by the story of her life as well as the story of her death.
I'm going to give you a short one.
All right, let's hear it.
Recently, it happened probably in November. We were going down to the island, and I encountered a certain amount of technical difficulty with the doorway. Namely, the difficulty was getting through the doorway. As most of you know, I have Parkinson's disease. I'd like to say, I don't know if I have it or it has me, but one or the other is going on. So I enter the turnstile door going from the platform into the
airport?
Yeah. And suddenly I was being bounced around like a ping pong ball or a cue ball. I was lying on my back, being hit by the doorways one at a time. Boom, boom. I felt like a cue ball being thrown from one side of the floor to the other. People who have Parkinson's disease don't do rotary doors. They're bad. They're evil.
They're hard even for people without neurodegenerative diseases, to be
So
fair.
where does Kirby fit into this challenge?
Well, she would appreciate me being bounced around.
She just liked watching you dance.
The part that has the Kirby end to it is some guy reached in to the stop. He stopped the door with his foot. He reached in, grabbed me by my coat collars, and yanked me out of the doorway. And he goes, "Don't worry about it, Mac. I got the same thing you got. Be good. Stay safe." And off we went. So yeah, that was, I knew I had met Kirby again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I'm a cue ball in a rotary door.
Well, I think the man helping you was very much the kind of thing that Kirby would have done had
Mm-hmm.
she been there. I've been in so many situations where I saw Kirby being so selfless in helping others when she saw that they were struggling. And I have so many stories I could tell you, but when she was living in Mexico, and she bought me a special birthday present, and she's all excited about this birthday present, and she said, Mom, I thought you'd really like this, and besides, the girl is just starting a new business, and I really wanted to support her. And it was a woman who was making teddy bears with old fabrics and like sewing on crystals and a heart and things like that. So the whole idea of these teddy bears was really lovely. And Kirby bought me one for my birthday to basically to support her. This is the ugliest teddy bear I had ever seen in my life. It's hard, it's not cuddly, but what so impressed me was the reason she bought them was to support her, And she actually had a couple of them. And I was kind of amazed that, that she had done that. And not to disparage the artist who put these together, but they certainly weren't my personal taste. But that's the kind of thing she did.
Yeah.
She did a lot of reaching out to others to support them in their efforts when they were trying to create a business. That's what she did in Mexico with the musicians. She was very much a supporter of others.
I think part of it too was that, and I think in a way, this is one of those aspects of Kirby's personality that fits very much in with the seeker kind of profile, but she had vision, right? So I think that she was the type of person who would see someone like this, who was starting out with a business or just with a talent. And Kirby would look at them and see, yes, I can visualize where this is going. And I can visualize where you're going. And you just need some support and a little push in that, in that right direction. And she was the kind of person who, like you're saying, would offer that sort of support right away. But I think it was so amazing that, she was definitely not self-focused, although she, cared about her own dreams and finding her own purpose and that kind of thing. But she was always going to pull people up with her. She wasn't, self-absorbed in any way. And yeah. I remember going down over one of my spring breaks when I was in university. We got to go down when she was living in Cabo. And similarly, she, had connected with these people who owned a farm. And she was like, this place is like amazing. The farm is beautiful. They're growing all this beautiful food. And they have this property that's like, you can climb up into the hills and walk through these little citrus fruit groves and all this. And she was trying to help them sort of build like an ecotourism type business. And, again, it was like a local family. And she really wanted to help these people kind of build something there. So we were kind of like a guinea pig test run for doing a little tour at this place. And we went there, they picked these. I will always remember this fruit was like something between a lime and an orange. I don't even know what it would be called. It was delicious. And they had all these trees. So we ate this like amazing fruit, and they made us like fresh tortillas there. And then we took this hike up through the hills there in Baja, which is like, kind of quasi deserty. It was really beautiful. Yeah, that was the type of thing she was always doing, always trying to help other people out with their dreams and their visions and, new business endeavors and that kind of thing.
Are you talking about the eco tour with Salim?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was so good.
And that was a brand new business. And
Yep.
She was trying to help him get going, and it was a great idea.
Yeah.
What about the guy she had coming to the house that gave us all massages?
Oh yeah, that was awesome too.
Mm-hmm.
This was another thing. If you were lucky enough to know Kirby and visit her, she was like the best tour guide ever. There were always like activities lined up, places that you were going to go to, like cool people that you were going to meet, multiple restaurants and food establishments picked out that you were going to hit up. She was the best person to visit for that reason. Yeah.
It's my understanding. So Jean, at your wedding and in the lead up to your wedding, it's my understanding that she almost became a de facto wedding planner.
Mm-hmm.
So
she kind of just was like, we didn't really have a wedding planner, so she just sort of she kind of became the wedding planner.
But there were like situations that had to be handled. Like, so what happened?
Yeah, so my wedding reception was at Ginny and George's house in the backyard because I grew up in that house. I really wanted to have it there. They had done all this beautiful landscaping work in the many months leading up to the wedding. My Uncle Joe owns a landscaping business, so he was up there and they were doing all this amazing stuff. It had also rained for the wedding was in July, and it had rained for 3 or 4 months before the wedding. So the back field was like a swamp. And it came time for, the tent company to come, and everybody's down in the backfield, sinking into the mud, going there's no way we can set up, 50 tables down here or whatever it was. This is going to be impossible. And I was just like, that's my wedding. I'm freaking out. And Kirby was just like, we got to do something. So let's figure out what we're going to do. And then let's do it. So having worked in a number of the horse farms in the area when she was growing up and after she graduated from university, she just basically drove around asking people for hay and or wood chips so that we could create a little base, put some indoor, outdoor carpet, turf type stuff down. And it was a little spongy for the wedding itself, but
kind of like being on a waterbed.
It was like a waterbed, but it worked. It worked.
Jean and I had made these beautiful centerpieces for all the tables with willow branches and little tea lights, and they were just lovely. But none of the tables were actually level, so we couldn't put these on the table after they set the tables up, and we're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? Because they were really pretty. And Kirby goes, we'll just bury them in the bank, because where we had the tent set up, it was kind of a lower level on the property, and there's a bank that's a couple of feet lower than the level before it. So that's what she did, and we got a couple of people to make sure that when we started losing light, just to
Light the
light all
candles.
the little candles, and it was magical looking. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
It really turned out great. And we had enough flowers just to put some low-lying flowers on each table, and that worked. And so we pulled everything together, but really Kirby really did save the day, and made, it was just a magical day. It was a wonderful day. But she was a problem solver.
Yeah.
You know, she would go into problem solving mode pretty quickly when there was some kind of a difficulty or crisis. She was very inventive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's part of her reputation as the action figure cousin, I think. Some of it is that she was, you know, adventurous and did all kinds of cool stuff, surfing and skydiving and kite surfing and snowboarding and like all the, you know, basically all of the X Games. Kirby had done all of those sports and stuff. But also it was, you know, the action figure part was also just there's a problem. We gotta solve it, and we're gonna go solve it. Oh, hey, look, there's a Ginny Brown.
It just showed up because I just discovered on top of the computer, there's a little button that you can push.
Sometimes it's just as simple as a button. God.
If
Cheers,
Kirby,
cheers, Ginny.
if Kirby had been here, she would have seen the button before any of us, right? Like problem solved, right? Like she would. Maybe that was her actually. Maybe that came up.
Maybe she just showed up.
She may have also thrown the computer out the window and said, let's go out for dinner at the restaurant down the street. That also could have been her response.
Well, you know, it's interesting with all my technology challenges today. I was actually thinking about how much Kirby hated technology.
She actually did, yeah.
She really did, and I kept saying to her, "But you're younger than me. You need to embrace this, you know, so that you can teach me what to do." I remember, and the thing that was really bizarre. So this is a funny, bizarre story. When we got her camera, and it was a pretty new digital camera that she had. And she had taken a lot of pictures up at the mission right before she left to go to Sedona. And I think she was there in March, maybe. No, I forget exactly what the time schedule was, but she was up there and she had taken a lot of pictures. And I'm looking at the pictures on the camera, and all of a sudden I hear a video, and it's F this, F that, what the fuck is going on with this camera? And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, these are the last words I've actually heard from my daughter. It was so distressing.
I could see how at the time it would be very distressing, but it also feels kind of right at the
well, she was so frustrated. What the heck is this? Why is it recording my voice? And just take the goddamn picture. So I'm like, I know that there's quite a lot of similarity in personality and tolerance between my eldest and myself.
You know, yeah, definitely. And I think for Kirby, like, I'm always kind of curious, you know, I've thought about like, how would she have responded in the pandemic, for example, when a lot of our lives were kind of shut down and confined to these virtual spaces. And I know it would have been hard for her because Kirby was very much like a person of this world. She was like tactile and, you know, connected to the earth, and like in her body, she was physical, you know, and I in a way, I think that's kind of some of that digital resistance was like, that she didn't want that one step removed from the reality. She wanted to be right in the reality.
Well, I think she would have taken advantage of the fact that you had to be where you were.
Yeah.
So I think she actually would have had a pandemic party. She would have gathered some people together and created her own pod, and then spent a lot of time doing really cool things with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think she definitely, would have done that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think she
When
would
in
have also
doubt-
been. Sorry, go ahead.
When in doubt, scream and shout, and then push the head button.
Yeah. So another story I had wanted to tell that I was thinking about today was when she came home from college. And I don't know if I ever told Glenn what Kirby said after she graduated. Did I ever tell you? She had declared herself an English major, which shocked me because she hated to read. She was not a big reader. As Kirby said, as Jean said, she was a doer. She was busy. She was a busy person. So I was very surprised. And I said, well, why did you declare yourself an English major? She said, well, they were taking a trip to England. So of course I was going to go to England. So when she graduated, I said, so tell me, what did you learn by being an English major? And she said, I learned that you could finish something you hate.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And I was like, wow, how great we spent the tuition money for. Actually, that's not a bad thing to learn, that you can dislike something and make a decision to say, yeah, but I'm not staying a fifth year and declaring another major. I want to get on with my life, and what she did. But when she was working in Mexico in some of the big houses on the along the Sea of Cortez, she said to me once, I'm glad that I was an English major because I can walk into people's houses and check out their library and we can talk about books. And she said that creates a different kind of relationship than if I was just in their house painting the walls. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then, she did a lot of reading that summer before she went to Sedona. Oh. Talk about as a consumer of self-help books, she definitely was.
Well, so that's what I was going to ask. Like, so, I mean, I obviously never met Kirby. I mean, obviously I feel like I know her. I think about her daily. And it's odd to to think about someone every single day who you never met. But Jenny, I mean, you told me once that you think she and I would have gotten along and we'd have had a lot to talk about. And I'm sure we would have talked a lot about self-help. Like I can just imagine me and Kirby and Christine Whelan sitting down and talking for hours about self-help. So to your recollection, do you happen to know kind of what Kirby's favorite self-help authors, books, personalities were?
I think she had read the 5 Agreements. She definitely liked The Alchemist.
Classic.
And there were a lot of quotes. There were some actually a couple of quotes we put in the book because I had her book and she had underlined things. She had read The Holy Way. I'm trying to think of what else. She was reading about holotropic breathing. So I think she had Groff's book.
You bet.
And she had read, unfortunately, but she had read Harmonic Wealth. And I think a lot of what Ray said and taught really resonated with her. I think the idea of living with integrity, the idea of showing up, and giving everything your all, and really playing full on. I mean, she always played full on. So I think so much of what he taught so spoke to her. And the only thing that made sense to me after her death was that it was the perfect storm. Ray's hubris and conviction that nothing bad could happen to him, and he was on top of his game and everything would be fine, clashed with Kirby, who always played full on and would take a challenge.
You bet.
And give it her all. And that's part of, and I think that's the important thing when people understand some of their own temperament qualities, to appreciate the fact that, yes, it's important to be able to move out of your comfort zone, but you also really do have to pay attention to the things that could be life-threatening. And I think Kirby did that in her real life, because despite all of the, adventurous sports she had a tremendous amount of safety equipment. Like for every sport she was involved in, she had like all the safety stuff, so it's not like she wasn't aware of keeping herself safe. But I think being inundated with that rhetoric for 5 days, it would be a very difficult thing for anyone, as Christine Whalen always says and points out, a difficult thing for anyone to resist that internal drive to get where you want to go. And here's someone telling you, this is what you have to do.
Well, of course. And I mean, the experience of spiritual warrior was designed to compromise people's judgment. Like it was designed to lower their resistance. Like he was, I mean, something that really struck me, Jenny, as you and I were participating in the production of the Guru podcast from Wondery, which deals with Sedona and deals with a lot of the source material. Something that really struck me was the recordings that were made at Spiritual Warrior. And James is straight up telling folks, you can sleep, but I wouldn't recommend it. Like he's straight up telling people, don't sleep. We know from accounts of people who were there that the food intake was severely limited. We also know from reports of people that were there that they were doing these all-night vision quests in the desert. And I always say these things with quotes because it's not an actual vision quest any more than it was an actual sweat lodge. But the point is that, man, after 5 days of explicit techniques that are designed to lower your judgment, or to compromise your judgment and lower your inhibitions, at that point, it's not a matter of intelligence or strength or anything. I mean, at that point, it's like, man, you're being led by the nose. Kind of on that subject in the Guru podcast. So if people watching aren't familiar, Wondery Media put out a 6 or 7 episode podcast about Sedona and James Arthur Ray. It's called Guru. I think you can still find it on their website. Also had recordings of Kirby there at the event. Talking about the breakthroughs that she was making, and even in the midst of this very difficult event, I mean, this event that was designed for suffering, you could really hear her commitment to transforming suffering, which James was signaling that was part of his teachings. Like we know now that he doesn't really have the background or credentials or intellect to understand or teach those things. But I mean, you could really hear in what Kirby was saying at the event itself that, man, like she went into this really hoping for transformation and really confident that it had something to offer her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you have a fun story to tell about Kirby, Jean, or did anyone send anything to you? Or
yeah, so I had some people send me kind of stories that I thought we'd share some of them. So a family friend of ours, a friend of our parents actually, in the late 90s, they adopted a son from Russia, and they had gone there to go get him. And when they got back, I think that they had kind of arranged with you guys that you guys were going to pick them up at the airport. But when they arrived at the airport, there was a huge stretch limo there, and Kirby was there. For a while, she drove for a limo company. She was a limo driver. And so she was in her full like limo getup with a hat and everything. And I think she made them feel like, they were like the biggest deal. And, again, it was like one of those things where it was a big deal for these people. It was such a huge event in her life. She recognized that and was going to, help them have that experience. And so, our friend, she talked about how she'll never forget Kirby picking them up. And this is the first ride they had in a car with their new son. And it was so exciting. And they felt like so special and so important. I had never heard that story before. I didn't remember it. So it was really fun to see that one.
I
was
completely
like, oh.
forgot. I completely
Yeah.
forgot.
I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, that was definitely a Kirby thing too, was, giving people kind of unforgettable memories. A lot of people have a story like that about Kirby, where she did something for them that was like, such an important thing in their lives.
So, did you ever talk to Frank, who has always been one of our sponsors, shoe fitters, Frank Giannini, because Kirby took them into the city in a limo and brought them to Lamella's to celebrate their daughter Hope's birthday. And I'm not sure whether it was her, I think it was like her 15th or 16th birthday. And it was an unforgettable day for her.
Right.
And for him. And it was so interesting when she was driving limos, she had this one experience where it was a group of girls who were having their bachelorette party before the wedding, right? So they're in the limo and they know what place they wanted to go. There was music or some kind of club or something. So Kirby drops them there, but she said, they're a little quiet. So she wasn't sure. She wanted to make sure they were really going to have a good time. So she found a place to park the limo. And she goes into the club and the girls are sitting kind of over on the side or in the corner or something. She goes to the owner of the club and she says, we have a bride here and her bridal party, and you really need to feature them. So let's get them out on the floor, introduce them, have everyone clap, and we'll get them, let's make them the center of attention. This is a big deal. So that's what they did.
Yeah.
And then Kirby's out there on the dance floor with them dancing. And the girls said to her afterwards, driving home, they said they had the best night ever. They never would have had so much fun if it hadn't been for her, and that she should do that as a business. And after that, she really was thinking, gee, that really would be neat, like to create people's like fantasy night or like something super special, right? So she started a business that she called As You Wish. And I remember when we were working on the flyers, we were trying to think of a name, and because we're like, all of us love Princess Bride, so it was like, that was a no-brainer. That had to be the name. So the name was As You Wish, and you could call her and tell her where you wanted to go, what you wanted to do, and she would set everything up. She'd make the dinner reservations, she'd get the tickets, and she'd do the limo. I remember she did someone's a 25th anniversary, and she said to the guy, what's your wife's favorite wine? What kind of flowers does she like? She had the wine and the flowers in the limo for the guy and brought them someplace special in Manhattan to make that a memorable and special night. And I loved that. I thought that was so fabulous. And I know John, who was the owner of the limousines, liked that the limos were being used that way too.
Right.
and they had a nice arrangement. But Kirby knew that it had the potential to really become a business, and not just a fun thing to do. So, she said, well, I don't know that I want to stay in New York. And I don't know that I want to invest money into this, and that's what I'd have to do. So that's when she moved out to Lake Tahoe with Emily. Because she wanted to go to Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
She didn't want to live in Westtown forever, in our attic, which is fabulous. A fabulous place to live.
Glenn wants to live in your attic.
That's my plan. That's my whole plan. You guys don't know that the Brown. So for those watching, the Brown family lives in this purple little house. It's not a little house; it's a big house. I mean, it's a biggish house, but it has this amazing finished attic. So whenever I'm in New York for a Sikh event or something, I stay with Ginny and George, and I've kind of taken over that attic apartment. And what's fantastic about the attic is it is like the story of the Brown family. There are trinkets. I've seen Jean's like junior high yearbook is up there. I mean, for real, choice picture, Jean. Choice picture. It's up there. There's a dollhouse that would be creepy if it wasn't so interesting. Like it's like it's a big dollhouse. I don't know whose dollhouse that is. I assume that's
Jean's. That was a Christmas present.
But I can also, the other thing that's in that attic apartment is books and books and books, and I can actually trace the evolution of Ginny and George Brown as therapists through the book titles on those many bookshelves up there. I've also stolen like 5 books from you. I don't know if you know that or not, but
thank you.
So some of those titles I've been looking for.
Pretty much.
Steal away, please.
But I always found that funny because I mean, I have the reputation of being, and now Christine has joined me as being kind of the self-help geeks of Seek Safely. But to take a glance at Ginny and George's attic with all of these books, I know there are books throughout your house as well. I'm like, well, no, this was a tradition long established in the Brown family of behavioral science literature and spiritual literature and these kinds of things. I always found it funny. One of the books that I specifically remember finding in your attic up there was something like How to Deal with a Spirited Child, and I'm like, how to deal with a spirited child. I wonder who, because that could be anybody. That could be that I could see Kirby, I could see Jean, I could see, like, so yeah, that's my plan, is to move into your attic.
And on the attic are all the posters from all the national parks we went to.
It's true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why I love it.
Speaking of books, so I don't know if everybody watching is aware. I mean, I know we have in this Seek Week, we've been talking to some people who this is their first introduction to Seek. I know this because they've told me, and so we're really expanding our reach with this week, and I'm thrilled about that. I don't know if they know you. So you guys, Jean and Ginny, wrote a book. It's titled This Sweet Life, How We Lived After Kirby Died. It talks about your experience. I mean, part of what it talks about is your experience around Sedona and the aftermath. It has the coolest picture in the history of the universe on the cover of Kirby Brown with a surfboard and kind of doing the hang 10. And I always look at that cover of you guys' book and I'm like, this chick is cooler than I will ever be.
This is pretty cool.
I don't know if you guys can kind of talk about, what it was like to write that book. And I mean, it was a hell of a way to kind of process what you all were dealing with, because it wasn't that far after it all happened that you guys started work on this.
The book got published in 2020. Jean and I had been working on it for about 3 years, maybe. When Jean and I first talked about it, I knew I wanted to write a book. because I wanted the world to know her.
Yeah.
And as I was going through my own individual grief journey, I felt that this was such a unique situation in terms of an untimely death, a tragic death, a criminal death, and a public death, that all those different layers, that if we could share with other people, you know, how we handled that, that might be helpful. That might be helpful for others. I know lots of times when someone loses someone, especially a child, they just want to meet people who have survived. And when Jean said she wanted to write something too, I was like, oh, well, this is a no-brainer because she's a really good writer. The writing I've always done in my life has been curriculums and programs and workshops and, you know, more educational in nature. And I thought, oh, this would be great. So we began sharing our thoughts and writing and kind of organizing, you know, how we would divide the book up. And then my brother Frank got involved in helping us. We met with him every Wednesday night for what, about a year and a half, Jean?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. And Frank would say to me, well, I can tell you started writing something yesterday, Jen, because, you know, there's a date on it. So, and it would be Tuesday. Because he was going to read it on Wednesday. And then we would have the meeting and we would talk about it. So it was very, very helpful to have someone kind of monitoring our progress, because it was hard. It was very hard to write. And there were lots of times when, you know, there was like big collapses in the process. Harder than writing the book was recording the book for me. That was very, very hard.
Yeah, we have put out an audiobook and it is narrated by my mom and I, reading our own parts. So yeah, that's a slog recording. Yeah.
That was tough. I think it did help to process. And one of the things that was wonderful about writing it with Jean was to get, you know, like a real inside view on and how she was processing this and what she thought. And sometimes I was a little surprised and grateful, you know, to have. It's a very unique experience.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. I mean, yes, something that I talk a lot about is, I mean, obviously how important putting words to our experience is. And over on my page, I talk a lot about kind of the neuroscience of why that is, about how when we experience something really emotional and traumatic, it often lives kind of in that right hemisphere of our brain where kind of this less verbal but highly emotional stuff rattles around. I talk about it like the nuclear reactor that's kind of melting down because it's like so emotional and so painful. But the left side of our brain, which is where all this verbal processing happens, it's where our words live, kind of functions as the coolant that can flow through the nuclear reactor of the right brain and kind of cool everything down and help turn it into something you know, productive. You know, that's how nuclear energy is made. It's steam, actually. It's cooled down. It's steam. It turns turbines. And so the way you guys did that, you know, putting words to your experience, you know, I mean, really kind of lighting up that left side of the brain and you know, processing what you'd been through. I think not only, you know, I mean, in reading the book, you can not only see how it was helpful for you guys, but one of the things I love about it, one of the reasons why I always recommend it to people, is that you guys really set an example for how to engage with experiences that are just overwhelmingly painful. But you did so in a way that was so compassionate and self-compassionate and with such grace. that it really, I recommend it to all my folks, all my patients, because again, I think it sets such an example of how to do that. And how and why it can be helpful. So you guys really gave the world a gift with that book.
I'm like having a, as you're talking, I'm like, yes, I've had this. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that's what was going on. I've told people, people ask this, what was it like to write the book? And one of the experiences that I had a lot was I would sit down and try to, kind of record my thoughts about a particular moment in the story. And in my mind, the moment, was colored a certain way. I remember this moment as being like really irritating, or I was really angry about it, or there was just, something in it. I had a very strong feeling this was a moment when I was angry, or whatever the kind of like label that I had put on it was. And then as I wrote about it, and, it's also processing through the lens of different years after it had happened, it changed, and it would go from being, oh, I thought that this was a moment I felt really angry about, and I really like hated that person, or whatever the thing was. But then as I'm writing about it, I can see it in a different way. And that, I understand that was me kind of processing things. And as you're talking, I'm like, right, exactly. That was me working through it. And had I never spent that time of working through it, it probably would stay in my brain as that first initial impression, as opposed to, having taken the action of processing it and reflecting on it and revisiting it. It changed it and became more bearable in many ways, a more bearable thing to kind of hold on to. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's what processing is.
Well, one of the things I loved that we explained in the book is what your father did, Jean, and after, as the family gathered here that week after Kirby's death, and the house was filled with people and food, and it was just wild. Every night after we got the babies to bed, he would have us sit in the living room and talk about what the day had been like, what we were thinking, who we had spoken to, and how we felt. And he was actually doing what's called a critical incident debriefing, because that's what he did. And I was very grateful. The first night he did that, I was like, well, you know what? And then right away I got it. I was like, oh God, I'm so glad you thought to do that, because I'm just out of my mind here, and but helping to tell people that you have to talk. You have to talk about what you're thinking and how you're feeling, and how important it is for all the people that are involved to talk about it, because you see the same thing from different perspectives and different ways. And that's really important too. And we typically don't do that. I've worked with many families where the tragic accident is never mentioned again. We don't talk about it. And it sits in the family. That's a ghost that destroys, So doing that, and I hope that comes across clearly in the book, that this is an important thing to do when you're going through something really traumatic, that you need to talk about it. You need to talk about your thoughts and your feelings, and share it with those who are part of the event as well.
Yeah.
So for everybody wondering why I click with the Browns, it's exactly this kind of thing. Ginny and George Brown, I was talking about this on my live stream on the Dr. Doyle page last night, that Ginny and George have been therapists specifically working with a lot of trauma. for years and years. And so even if we didn't share kind of this passion for cleaning up the self-help industry, we would still have plenty of things to talk about, and we always do. So that's something I really value about. I'm so grateful to. I know I've said this to you privately, but I mean, I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to not just work with you, but I mean, really kind of become part of your family, as we do this work together.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's so weird to think that I never met Kirby because I feel like I know her so well. But I see her like I see her in Jean, I see her in you and George, and I see her in this organization.
Mm-hmm.
It was really important to me, as we kind of reconceptualized the Kirby Jam, to give a night to Kirby. So people watching don't know, so the Kirby Jam for a long time was a physical event. And then COVID, we made it a virtual event. And this year we decided to, instead of we were going to make it a one-night event and kind of devote a little chunk of time to each of the things that we've discussed on each of these live streams. But I got to thinking, man, I would really hate for Kirby to get 5 minutes, the Kirby Jam. Like, to me, it was really important that, we kind of give the Kirby of the Kirby Jam a little time to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so glad we were able to do this. I can't let the jam end without saying that every year when we do the physical event, there is at least one moment where someone comes up to Ginny Brown and shares a memory of Kirby, usually about Kirby having shown up at some live music establishment that she was at the time probably not old enough to be at, and say, I remember Kirby showing up at this live show, and Ginny going, oh, really? There's always at least one moment like that in every live event that we do. And I always find it funny to watch Ginny going, I see. Interesting. Okay.
So Glenn, do you have any questions about Kirby?
Oh, endless. Because I ask you gosh. So one of the big questions that I've always wondered about is one of the things that we've talked about Kirby's life is that she did, she's a very young person when she passed, and she did lots of things, right? Like she hadn't really settled on any real strong career trajectory. She'd done lots of things. She was good at lots of things. Had she lived, what's your guess as to what she would be doing right now?
I think she'd still be in Mexico. I think she loved Mexico. She had bought property, and actually George and I, at one point, the person she had bought it with needed to sell his portion, and we purchased it. So we owned this piece of property together. And I think she would have developed it the way she had talked about one of the things that that she wanted to do. And she would always say to me, Mom, don't worry, when you get older, I'll just bring you down to Mexico. We'll build a casita and I'll get Maria to take care of you, so, or someone, there. And we just sold that property to Mika and Bobby Cutler, who were very good friends of Kirby's, and are building on it. And they want to make the property to be a place where people who need to be together to help each other as they get older, to be together and to build like extra casitas on the property, with a main, like a main house. And I'm really grateful we were able to do that, because I think Kirby would be thrilled, because I think that's what she would have done with that property. So I think she would have still been there. I think that business would have gotten expanded, and she would have had many, many more adventures of things to do.
That's so appropriate. That's perfect, right? That's
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah.
Gene, what was it like to,
thoughts.
I'm sorry, George.
I'd like to throw a couple of thoughts on that.
You want to put a few thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
I'm cheating. I'm copying someone well known. I want to say that Kirby's wish for us is fairly simple. It just says love one another as I have loved you. So one thing we could do tonight, when we each go home to our own house, is to love one another.
Yeah.
And to always behold and hold the beauty that lives within each of you. So for your beauty and grace, I thank you.
Pretty perfect.
How do you follow that, man?
He's always been a showstopper.
Man,
So just an ender, a closer.
I was gonna say, Gene, I think
I like
I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to say than that. I think that pretty much sums up Kirby as clearly as we can.
Want to remind everybody that, of course, the very reason we're doing this is this is our annual fundraising week campaign. You can donate to Seek Safely on Facebook. You can either go to the Dr. Glenn Patrick Doyle page. You can find it pinned to the top of my page. You can go to the Seek Safely page. I'm going to be hopping on my Facebook page in a little bit to do another late night bonus, so you can contribute there if you'd like. And we've got one more night of Seek Week ahead of us. We're still not done. Tomorrow night, Gene and Ginny, it's your show.
It's Ginny's show. Yeah, we're doing our interview with Ginny Brown, the founder of Seek Safely. Ginny is taking a well-deserved step back into an advisory position on the board. So we're going to be talking with you about the experience of starting up a nonprofit organization and, just what that's been like and what you see for the organization as we go forward and all that good stuff. So. Yep,
it's my public exit interview.
Exactly.
I thought for a second you were going to say it's my public execution. I'm like, no, Ginny, we're not that. So no, we very much.
I want to thank everyone who's contributed because this is really important to us. That it's the memory of Kirby, it's the memory of James and Liz, the two other wonderful people who lost their life with Kirby. It's in their memory that we want to save others' lives and try to improve the whole journey of self-improvement and growth. This is a great thing to grow and to expand yourself. So, but we want it to be safe, and we don't want people to be harmed emotionally or harmed financially. So the work that we do is to try to bring ethics and safety to the industry, but also to make sure that consumers get good education about what you need to pay attention to and what you need to think about even in yourself, who you are, where you're going, and what you're looking for, so that the journey that you take is really going to be a good one. But we need financial support to be able to do that. So thank you. Thank you for your financial support. And I want to thank our sponsors. We have some wonderful sponsors who, have been very, very generous.
Mhm.
Big time.
Exactly.
Big time.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can find more information about all of the events on our social media, on our website, seeksafely.org. And hopefully you'll join us tomorrow night, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 7 Central. And we will
check out the auction. Check out the
Yes.
virtual auction.
Yeah, we've got our virtual auction. And yeah, that's it tomorrow night. It's our last night of the Kirby Jam 2023 Seek Week.
Thank you, Jean.
Thanks,
you.
Glenn.
Good to
Thanks,
see y'all.
Glenn.
See y'all in a bit.
Bye,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye.